nasty out today. And that's okay, because we don't have to fish in it. I got a hot cup of coffee, my favorite coffee cup. And we're gonna talk about tackle, because it is too nasty to fish. Custom made by a guy named Brian Heberlin. Let's warm in here. Been doing some tackle organization the last couple days, and I was thinking about doing something like a here's how I organize my tackle type video, show you guys how I store the stuff in my boat. But instead, I think we're going to talk about today what's been my go-to bait on Lake Toho and the Harris chain over the last couple of weeks. It's been really cold. We've been getting hit by cold fronts every other day, and fishing has gotten tough. I've had a lot of people texting, calling, messaging me over the last couple of weeks when they've got a tournament coming up, asking, hey man, what do I gotta do out there right now to catch a freaking limit of fish? Cold fronts are on the move. All I can tell you is it's not easy. It's been tough. Around Christmas, we had a little bit of a false spawn start to try to happen. Threw a lot of people for a loop. Things have been weird. Toho's got too much hydrilla in it. A lot of the fish are in places that are hard to fish right now. So what do you do? What do you throw? We're going to talk about that today. Hopefully some of this advice might get you guys a couple of these. I don't know if a raccoon came in here or what. We got something in the corner making some noise. But yeah, you guys want to catch more of those? Stay tuned. I'm about to tell you guys what I'm throwing right now to catch those fish. All right, guys. So let's talk about fishing. See, we're in the garage. It is too cold, too windy, and too rainy to be out there on the water. So we're going to talk about how the fishing's been on Toho. And we're going to talk about how the fishing has been on the Harris chain. We'll start with the Harris chain because it's been a little easier to dial them in up there. You know, oddly enough, the Harris chain's a little bit further north of here than the Kissimmee chain in Toho is, but those fish seem to be a lot more ready to spawn than the fish on the Kissimmee chain are. Kissimmee chain has been as bad, if not worse, than I have ever seen it in my entire life. I can't remember the last time that tournament weights have been this low for this long. I can't remember the last time it's been this difficult to catch a limit of fish out there. That being said, up on the Harris chain, they seem to be staging, kind of pre-spawn stage, finding them out there off of docks, out off the end of docks, on Dora, you know, in Bouclair. They're sitting in the holes just adjacent to the eelgrass flats where they'll be spawning at here shortly. Big Lake Harris, they're out off the end of points, especially if they're shell bar points. They're out off the deeper end of the points out there, just kind of hanging out. A lot of fish up there on the Harris chain just seem to be staging. And they're just, I think they're ready to spawn. I think they're just waiting on a little bit of warm weather. With that being said, couple things, and it's the same on the Kissimmee chain as it is the Harris chain. I've been having all of our luck up there on basically two things. One, it's been the ChatterBait. A shad colored, threadfin shad colored Jackhammer 1/2 ounce matching trailer. It's kind of been my go-to up there. this time of year, I like to throw at docks. I like to throw a chatterbait at docks, especially in some of the dirtier lakes up there, like Harris, Little Harris, Eustis, and Dora. You know, Bouclair, the water in Bouclair right now is gin clear. It's as clear as I've ever seen it. You know, but the other way that we're catching a lot of fish up on the Harris chain right now is live scope. That guy right there has been an absolute game changer the last couple weeks for catching some bigger fish for me. That's a bait called the Last Ace. I'll let you guys look those up. The Last Ace has been absolutely killer. I'm just getting out there throwing that on a Dobyns Champion 733 spinning rod. Yeah, Harris chain, seems the fish are staged up. I think they're waiting for some warm weather to spawn. Now Lake Toho, like I was saying, has been probably worse than I can remember ever seeing. You know, we're catching some fish, we're catching some nice fish, it seems like every third day or so, but golly, most days it's been like pulling teeth with a set of tweezers out there to catch fish, and it's been absolutely brutal. And the problem that I think is, I think the lake has too much grass in the area of the lake that we need to be fishing right now. I think the fish are wanting to stage for the spawn, but all the areas on Toho that they would be staging at for the spawn are completely choked out with hydrilla or pepper grass, and it's a nightmare to throw anything in those areas to where you can generate a reaction strike. And being able to generate a reaction strike this time of year when the water temp is in the 50s is crucial. Things like a hard jerkbait, things like a chatterbait, you know, anything, you know, lipless crankbait, vibratory baits, things that come burning through there, or, you know, things that you can give a long pause to and kind of let suspend in a certain area of the water. This time of year can be crucial for catching fish, and I think a lot of those fish have moved into zones of the lake that the grass is so thick and it's just so covered up, you can't effectively get a bait in front of their nose. You know, and then of course you can lock down to other lakes on the chain. Right now you got Cypress, Hatchinall, and Kissimmee, but for whatever reason, you know, I'm sure they have their reasons why, but they've got that side, Cypress, Hatchinall, Kissimmee, and Tiger. You know, I pay attention to the water elevations daily on the Florida Water Management District app, and some days they've had it at summer pool, and then over the last week or so they've let it come up a little bit to where it's about 6, 7, some days 8/10 above summer pool, which for this time of year is extremely low. And it's just really weird out there right now, and a lot of guys are struggling to catch, you know, limit of fish, let alone a tournament winning bag of fish. But these are going to be my go-to bait picks for when things get really tough, the water is cold. These baits are going to be what I'm grabbing for most days right now on both the Harris chain and the Kissimmee chain of lakes to try to have a good day. This is going to be the number one thing I grab. Those are going to be chatterbaits. Jackhammer for me, 1/2 ounce jackhammer is my go-to, and as far as colors go, pretty much one of 3 colors kind of guy. That one's going to be that 1/2 ounce jackhammer in, I think it's called Bee Height Delight, obviously golden shiner, and then that's just like a threadfin color, any kind of a generic shad pattern with a silver blade on it. Now I really like this color for the Harris chain. I do really well on the Harris chain, especially in the green lakes like Harris, Little Harris, Eustis, Dora. Last year, Bouclair, throwing a lot of really white colored stuff. This year, the water is really, really, really clear in there, and I'm not having the success in Bouclair this year on a bladed jig that I've had in the past. I've actually had to go down to finessier things, weightless flukes, you know, Sakamata Shad is one of my favorites. But definitely on Toho and most of the Kissimmee chain, I'm going to be throwing Beehive Delight or Golden Shiner and a 1/2 ounce Jackhammer, and just covering a lot of ground right now. I mean, it's tough out there, and that's the benefit to this guy. It's a vibratory jig. It generates a lot of reaction bites, and I can chunk and wind that thing. It's going to come through grass pretty good. It's going to go through most cover very well. And, you know, a lot of times if he's there and you reel it in front of him, he's going to eat it. When things get really tough on Toho and a lot of the Kissimmee chain, things start getting really weird. My go-to, when I can't get bit on anything else, now I'm going to use the term weightless fluke. I use the term weightless fluke loosely. A lot of times what I'm throwing is a Depths Sakamata Shad. Now Zoom has a version of this. There's probably some other companies making a version of this, but it's basically a weightless fluke, but they got the wings on it, and that makes that bait roll side to side like that. If you're watching this and you're an anti-live scope guy, you know, whatever. I'm using a live scope a lot. Helps me to locate fish, helps me to know I'm around fish, and that goes a long way whenever things are really tough. But even if I wasn't using live scope, I'd still be grabbing for and throwing a weightless fluke of some sort at shallow, you know, heavy to sparse vegetation. And the benefit to that weightless style soft plastic jerkbait is that, one, they cast good enough. You know, I can get a pretty good long cast out of it. Two, the twitch of it generates a reaction bite. But the other thing that I can do is I can pause that bait. And on a long pause, it has a very slow fall shimmer going down towards the bottom. Looks like dying bait. And this time of year, I just think these fish are after a really easy meal. This is the Zoom version, by the way. A little bit smaller guy. This is Arkansas Shiner, but similar deal. On that free fall coming down weightless, he shimmies and rolls side to side like that. And it's just enough of a different look that it generates a lot of bites. And this time of year, that's crucial. You know, this, I'll show you guys my fluke box. This thing stays underneath the front deck with me this time of year because I'm always reaching in and grabbing something out of there. And I've got a few patterns, like color patterns, that I really always kind of stick to. You can see my Sakamata Shad collection. I've got big Sakamata Shads, you know, all the way down to some smaller stuff and even the winged fluke. But you know, generally speaking, I'm a watermelon red kind of guy. If I can't get bit on watermelon or watermelon red, Arkansas Shiner is always a go-to color for me. I've got some soft plastic jerkbaits in here made by Bruiser. They're in like kind of like a green pumpkin June bug color. I've not had a lot of luck on that color for it, but day in, day out, any kind of watermelon red pearl, Arkansas Shiner, I have a lot of luck on those. That weightless fluke this time of year for me on Toho, for especially the last couple of weeks, has been a key player in being able to put clients on catchable fish when the conditions have been terrible and the bite has been really tough. We've still had some really good days, both using live scope, not using live scope, just going down the bank fishing and just throwing a weightless style soft plastic jerkbait. I've got a pretty basic technique. Generally speaking, it's the same for me. You know, even if I'm using a live scope, I kind of will watch the bait and watch the fish, see how they react, and try to let the fish talk to me. Without live scope, generally speaking, I'm 2 or 3 twitches, super long pause. 2 or 3 twitches, super long pause. You know, I've fished with a lot of really good anglers, and some of the best anglers that I have fished with that are the best with a weightless fluke style bait, you know, it's funny, they're cigarette smokers. These guys would throw this bait out there, twitch the weightless fluke a couple times, take a drag off of a cigarette, exhale cigarette, kind of just hang out for a minute, twitch that weightless fluke a couple more times, go back to smoking a cigarette. And they always could catch more fish than I could throwing a weightless fluke. And it took me a little bit to learn, but what it is they're just fishing that bait that much slower than I am. I tend to want to be in a hurry and fish baits too fast. You know, a weightless fluke, Sakamata Shad, whatever it is you want to call it, shad jerk, its shining moment, in my opinion, is the fall. That slow, weightless fall. I don't think that the fish eat it too many times whenever you're jerking it, when they're twitching that bait. I think a lot of your bites come from whenever it's falling. And so I think the key is a very slow presentation this time of year. You know, the water temps are down, fish are really lethargic. They want to eat, but I think they just don't have the energy to pursue and eat a lot right now. This little gem right here has been an absolute game changer for me up on the Harris chain, especially the last couple weeks fishing really clear water up there. And this is called a Last Ace. And I'll let you guys look into this. Like all of my videos, I will drop a link in the description below, linking that bait in there. But in clear water presentations, and even in Harris, Little Harris, out off some of those deeper points in that lake that got shell on it. Some of it have brush piles scattered out off the point, stuff like that, where I'm finding a lot of bigger fish staging at right now. This guy is absolutely a killer bait right now. Absolute killer. You can really keep it in the strike zone for a long period of time, and it's got very subtle action in the water. Again, I'm throwing that on a Dobyns Champion 733 full grip spinning rod, Abu Garcia Revo Rocket, super light line. It's like 10-pound braid to a 10-pound leader. Some of those bigger fish that you catch, that gets a little weird, but not had any of them break the line. You know, you keep your drag set properly, you're not going to have any problems. Now, obviously, I'm not going to take this setup and go throw that setup in the hydrilla on Toho. You could get bit on this setup in the hydrilla on Toho, but your chances of getting a 3, 4, 5, 6 pound fish back out of all that grass on Toho and back to the boat, it's kind of like bringing a knife to a gunfight. This is going to be my weightless fluke setup for Toho. This is a Dobyns Sierra. This is a 703. It's a 7-foot rod, but it's kind of a medium heavy action. It casts a weightless fluke a mile. The twitch is nice on it, and you've got enough backbone on, I'm throwing a 14-pound fluorocarbon on this. You've got enough backbone and enough power to at least pin the fish. Even if you can't get them out of the grass, you can pin them and go get them. You're not going to be able to do that on a super light, finessey spinning tackle. It's just, you know, you're just fighting the drag the whole time, and by the time you put enough pressure on that fish to try to hold it in the grass, you're liable to break your leader. You can break the main line. It just, a lot of iffy things going super light, finessey tackle on Toho right now and all that hydrilla and pepper grass. Definitely on Toho, recommend if you're throwing a weightless fluke, weightless soft plastic jerkbait style, I definitely recommend trying to stick with the bait cast setup. Up on the Harris chain, you know, whether you're blind casting or, you know, especially using a live scope, definitely recommend giving the ultra finessey approach a try right now. Been able to get a few bigger bites on that over the last couple of weeks. And then the ChatterBait for Toho right now that I'm throwing for sure as far as color pattern goes, like I said, it's going to be that Bee Height Delight or Golden Shiner. obviously bait cast setup. My ChatterBait setup is a Dobyns Champion, and that's a 735 CB. That's a glass rod. It's a 7'3", kind of a heavy, it's not quite medium heavy, it's not extra heavy, but that's a 7'3" heavy glass rod. And I absolutely love this rod. I'm throwing that on a Lew's BB1 Pro, 17-pound fluorocarbon. I used to throw chatterbaits on straight braid a lot, and if I'm throwing like, so it changes for me throughout the year. When the spawn kicks off and I start going down to Cypress and Hatch and Haw and fishing these chatterbaits around spawning fish, and I know that the odds of getting bit by super gorilla are greatly increased at that point, I'll actually go to braid on my chatterbaits. I just have a little bit more confidence on braid, especially hookup, and being able to, you know, really drive that hook in there and get that fish back to the boat. I'm pretty particular on how my drag is set whenever I go to the braid on chatterbait, because one thing you have to watch when you fish a chatterbait, even these jackhammers, and I'll tell you, the jackhammer is the absolute best chatterbait that I have ever used. I've used the new Evos, they're nice. Used a lot of different bladed jigs over the years. And you know, and a lot of people make a good one, but day in, day out, they're expensive. I get it. It sucks when you lose one, but day in, day out, that jackhammer is the best bladed jig that I've ever used. But what I was gonna say is, even with as good of components as they come with, so like the snap that comes on the chatterbait, the jackhammer is about as good as it gets. You know, that's what you're paying for when you buy the jackhammer versus the original chatterbait, is you're getting better components, and the way that the head is molded to the hook and all that other kind of stuff, just everything about it, the way everything's connected, it runs better, it vibrates better, it hunts better, and it's a stronger connection all the way around. But with that being said, I have opened that snap up before, that line tie, on some bigger fish, throwing straight braid on a pretty stout rod. So you have to watch that if you're going straight braid on your chatterbait. Make sure you've got your drag set appropriately. You know, success in landing big fish is all about controlling every variable that you can. And if you're throwing all the best gear that you can throw, but your power to, you know, fish size ratio, however you want to break it down, exceeds something like that line tie on that chatterbait, and you open that line tie up on that chatterbait while you're fighting a 10-pound fish out of the grass and he pulls off, you know, those little things like that you got to pay attention to. This is the chatterbait that I'm throwing on the Harris chain right now. It's just a thread fin, colored, half-ounce jackhammer again. And that's a Zoom trailer right there. Kind of an experiment with those a little bit. I really like them. I forget the name of it. I'll put a link in the description below. But that's a Zoom straight tail bait. And I'm sure that it could be used on like a standalone weightless hook, or even a jig head for, you know, jig and minnow type application with live scope. But so far I'm really liking that trailer a lot on the back of the jackhammer. Run back through my bait picks that I've been using for the last couple of weeks on both the Harris chain of lakes and Lake Toho primarily. Start with the Harris chain. Out wide, scoping, fishing around brush, out off the ends of some of those shell points out there on Big Lake Harris and Eustis. That guy right there has been my deal. That's that last ace. Put a link to that guy in the description below. It's on a weedless hook. It's a very slow presentation. It takes a while to get down there. Super effective, super lifelike down there. Light line, spinning rod, Dobyns Champion, 733, Revo Rocket, or up closer to the bank, around deeper docks, deeper grass, deeper pads, a little bit deeper cover where those fish are staging for the spawn at. White colored jackhammer, that's threadfin shad, silver blade. It's got that new zoom straight tail trailer on the back of it. It's going down the bank, covering water. It's hard to beat up there this time of year. 17-pound fluoro, Caden 743. ChatterBait up close. Basically a jig and minnow, but it's not a jig. It's a weightless hook and minnow for stuff out wide. And then talking about Toho, a little bit thicker grass, fishing around pepper grass, a little bit thicker hydrola and stuff like that, or scoping out off the edges of that stuff. Sakamata Shad has been hard to beat, or you could go winged zoom fluke, but that guy working him through the grass, let him fall out off the edge. You can see him on live scope, you'll see him come out of the grass and follow it. You can get him to bite. Throwing that on a Sierra 703. And that's on a 14-pound fluorocarbon. So again, it's weightless. Basically talking about that weightless fluke presentation. And if I'm not doing that, I'm chunking and winding the gold shiner jackhammer. Got that straight tail shad trailer on there like we talked about. Pretty much the same thing in both places for me right now. You're either targeting individual fish out wide with the scope, or you're covering water with that thing right there. It's just the way it is. It's winter time in Florida. Florida strain fish don't like cold fronts. They don't like cold water. And they definitely don't like all this cold when they were ready to spawn just a few weeks ago. And now they're set back for a while. So in the meantime, guys, just keep going out there, keep trying, and give the jackhammer and the weightless fluke or weightless soft plastic jerkbait a try. See if it doesn't put a few fish in the boat for you. See you guys.